All right, for my presentation on Model View Controller for CIT 360, I thought I'd just start by going over a quick diagram to understand exactly what it is. It's an architecture that you can use for your app in order to control and manipulate data that the user sees and interacts with. So you can see we start with the user there on the bottom. What the user does is they actually interact with the controller, which is there to receive, interpret, and validate input, as well as create and update views and query and modify models. So what the user does is, let's say the user is logging in, the user will type in their username and password, click submit. They send that controller interprets the username and password. It's then passed to the model. The model reads in the username and password, verifies it with the database that they're an authenticated user, and it passes back a green light essentially, and the next page that the user is supposed to go to, it is passed then to the controller. The controller receives that from the model, passes it to the view, which then presents that successful login to the user. So it's fairly simple. I have a very simple example of how I did that in Java. We'll go ahead and go into um, Eclipse here, and we can see that I have a little MVC class created. What it does is it creates a model, it creates a view that passes the model to it, and then it creates the controller which passes the model and the view to it, and it runs it. Before we actually run it, we'll go ahead and look into these a little bit. We'll go ahead and start with the model here. The model just gets the name and address here of whatever the user types. You can get it from the model. You also set it here in the model, and we'll go ahead and go into the view now. The view is what you see, so it starts by printing out the name, printing out the address, and there's also a method for the final print statement that it does. So the view has nothing more than print statements that the user actually sees. The controller is where the majority of the work is done. What the controller does is first it goes to the view and it calls that print name method, so it asks the user its name, and it goes to the model and it actually sets the name as what it reads in the user types, and then it goes to the view and it prints out the address, and it does the same thing, goes to the model and it sets the address as what the user typed, and then it goes back to the view, and the controller actually grabs the data from the model in order to present the user with the appropriate view. So if we go ahead and run that here, let's see, it asks us to enter our name and our address, and it calls that this is your name and address. So it calls those methods here from the view, and that's a very simple outline of how the MVC architecture works.